So Annie Besant in that part of the book makes a contrast between what Rice Davids says, who was a scholar, and a deeper interpretation of Buddhism. And today, even scholars recognize that that was a superficial interpretation. Typically, they would put Buddhism as a pessimistic philosophy. Pessimism is part of a branch of philosophy, and they would say that Buddhism was pessimism or was nihilistic, and that's part of what theosophy is always fought against. And today's scholars recognize that that was a mistake.
So just so for the recording, we are on page 111 or 123, depending on what version you have. So what this reminded me of is, or the notes I took was that without the background of Hinduism, Buddhism seems like a different. And in the same way, it reminded me of like Krishnamurti's teachings. To me, and I've heard this from a couple people, if you know theosophy, you seem to understand Krishnamurti's teachings. I don't know, would you say deeper or wider? So to me, that's the same way. If you understand Hinduism, then the Buddhist teachings aren't so pessimistic. Is that what?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, scholars were not used to the idea of things are illusion, etc. They felt that was nihilistic, but then as they got more used to what that meant, then they feel differently. So yeah.
Any other comments about those few pages?
Well, I wouldn't say that the Buddhist teachings are pessimistic at all. Mm-hmm. So I would wholly disagree with that.
Yeah. I think they said it was pessimistic because the scholars said that because the Buddha is saying, life is suffering. If you want to be happy, you have to go beyond life, in a sense. You have to attain nirvana. So they interpreted that as, well, the view of life is pessimistic. Of course, there is a far deeper,
right. And I would say because I know listening to one of my kids, they thought the same thing. Why would you study that? Why would, you study about suffering? Mm-hmm. He was thinking he wanted to start from the standpoint of how you get to happiness. My kid. So from that standpoint, from a deeper teaching, yes, it's not pessimistic at all, but
yeah, if your philosophy is based on suffering, then people think it is pessimistic.
Right.
Yeah. I myself don't think it's pessimist at all. I think they read it superficially and didn't get the deeper aspect, the underlying teaching, actually, that there is suffering and everybody knows it's true, but there is a way to end suffering also. So that's the Buddha's teaching, in my opinion, the wealth of the wisdom,
Yeah, I think we can all agree to that.
Well, first of all, it's like this world is all suffering. And then you have to go beyond this world, which is annihilation. So what do you get? It's like there's nothing good for you.
Right. No, exactly. That's right. How they interpreted it.
Right. And and I can see in a 20-year-old's view, oh, I can get rid of suffering. I'm not going to suffer.
Well, for a college boy, they want to go straight to happiness. If you remember the movie, I think it was a movie about happiness. And after all the struggle, he became a millionaire. And that was the happiness. Become a millionaire, have a lot of cars, a big house, and things like that, which is the wrong
right.
way to pursue happiness.
Right. Okay, so if we go to the paragraph that says, but it is unnecessary to multiply instances, and that's 2 pages from where we were. Enough that the great teacher carefully re-echoed the ancient teachings, not as needing them himself, he who knew all, but lest the ignorant should be caused to stumble and turn away from the faith of their fathers. And then the next paragraph says, to a remarkable degree, they were practical and addressed the consciences of his hearers. And then we start, for example, his bhikkhus, we start with the stories. So does anyone want to take this first story and just give us a quick summary? Do we know where we're all? I'm starting on the paragraph that says, for example,
Oh, okay.
Hindus were quarreling violently one day, and hated ruled where peace ought to have been, and hatred ruled where peace ought to have been.
Annie Besant 114.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, on page, so you're on 116. Then the prince told him of his father's dying words. My father taught me that I must not be long. I must not keep hatred. I must not be short. I must not be hasty in action. That hatred ceases not by hatred at any time, but hatred ceases by love. For if I had slain thee, my friends would have slain me, your friends would have slain me in return. And my friends would then have slain your friends. And so hatred would not have ceased. But now we have each given to the other his life, and thus hatred ceased by love.
And that means not suffering. That ends the suffering.
Also, Annie Besant, when interpreting that, she says that if you look at this at the level of the thought forms, the thought forms just keep increasing each other, or strengthening each other. So there is never an end when there is animosity.
And we can see in this say that hatred ceases not by hatred at any time, but by love. Is one verse in the Dhammapada. So that like we have this like a reflection of the teaching of Buddha in any study, or in this case, what Annie Besant tried to get is the Dhammapada is behind there. Because you understand what I say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So probably the Dhammapada took those verses from this story, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
That the Buddha would tell.
Okay, the next one is about a weeping mother. Does anyone want to summarize that?
That's the mustard seed one.
Yes, yes.
I don't have the book with me. We share a book. So he has the book. But I read it. I read the whole
Right,
thing.
but it's a common story. Somebody,
Yeah, common.
who said the one about splitting the baby? No, that wasn't that one.
Solomon.
King Solomon.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, the mustard seed was like the baby was dead, and then he said, go and find a household where that has not been touched by death, and there was none.
Right. And there's one there in Christianity, isn't there a story of that? Go to the house. I'm sure I don't know Buddhism this well. There's something about knock on a door for somebody who has not been touched by death.
No, that was in Buddhism.
that is in the light of Asia.
Oh, okay.
The story of the mustard seed is in the light of Asia.
Okay.
Now, Jesus does have a story about a mustard seed, but it was different. So.
No. Yeah, I know. Okay, so then the next one is a man abused him vehemently as he was preaching the great doctrine. Does anyone want to summarize that one?
Hello, Gaspar.
Hello, Gaspar.
Hello. Very late, but with you.
But you're here.
Well, we didn't really talk about the previous one, what the main teaching was in the mustard seed.
Oh,
The disciple.
we all got it. Okay. My notes on the next paragraph is basically turn the other cheek. His teaching was a wicked man, it would be on page 117. A wicked man who reproaches a virtuous one is like one who looks up and spits at heaven. The spittle spoils not heaven, but comes back and defiles his own person. So again, he is like one who flings dirt at another, and then the wind is contrary. The dirt does not return on him who threw it. The virtuous man cannot be hurt. The misery that the other would inflict comes back to himself.
So that's karma, the
Right.
story about karma.
Right. And at first I thought, like, what's that saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face. Kind of like that.
What goes around comes around.
Well,
Now-
I mean, I kind of saw it as true as, if you don't recognize, you know, you're not reciprocating or responding the same way to them as they're treating you, the only harm they can do is to themselves. And which is probably exactly what everybody else said, so.
No, yeah. Isn't there something that Leadbeater says about, or Besant about, I don't know if it's a thought form or like when you throw out hate, it rebounds back to you?
If someone doesn't, again, you have to not become, you know what I'm saying? You can't be like them. You have to
Not react or rise above, in a sense.
they rise above. I don't know, you know, I mean, in Buddhist terms, what it would be.
I am rubber, you are glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you.
That was it. That was, yeah.
All right.
The boomerang effect, right?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
boomerang. And the harder you throw it, the faster it comes back to you, or with the same force.
Well, I think part of it is, you know, just is trying to say it a little bit more, you know, what he's trying to say is that you have more wisdom, that if you develop more internal wisdom, you see beyond someone's actions, especially ones of evil or hate.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next one is my notes say about meeting women. So the bhikkhus were asking about, well, what if I meet a woman? Does anybody want to summarize that one? He says here, it says, a long sermon as to wisdom of guarding himself from being led astray would not have been half as effective as the single sentence, keep wide awake, Ananda. Isn't there a story about a monk who went to his bhikkhu, who's the head guy?
The bhikkhu is a monk.
The bhikkhu is the monk, went to the head monk and said, I have this woman, I can't get her off my mind. And so, or I have this picture, and the monk said to or the head monk said, just focus on her. And so he reached enlightenment by just focusing on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a Zen story.
Oh, yeah.
Just, yeah.
I think I was mixing them together. Sorry. The other one is there were two monks walking, and one carried another woman across the puddle. And his friend said, "You're not supposed to touch the woman. How could you do that?" And what did he say? I let her go a long time ago. Why are you still carrying her? Something like that.
I left her on the shore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're still carrying her.
So yeah,
The most interesting part is, like he say, I just to help her to cross. You are the one who have that in the mind.
right.
So sometimes it's not the action which is bad, but the what you think.
No, that's yeah. Okay, so the next one is evil. Among the striking characteristics of his teaching, we find the occult fact that evil can only be put to an end by its opposite good. Does anybody want to read the rest of that?
Just read the paragraph or?
Yeah, read the teaching.
Okay. Among the striking characteristics of his teaching, we find the occult fact that evil can only be put an end to by its opposite good. Let a man overcome anger by love. Let him overcome evil by good. Let him overcome the greedy by liberality, the liar by truth. A man must be strong and purposeful. Earnestness is the path of immortality, nirvana. Thoughtlessness, the path of death. Those who are in earnest do not die. Those who are thoughtless are as if dead already. Causation is unbroken. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him, as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws a carriage. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves him. He who has done even a little good finds in this world and in the other happiness and a great profit. It is like a seed that has taken root well. He who has done what is evil cannot free himself from it. He may have done it long ago or afar off. He may have done it in solitude, but he cannot cast it off. And when it has ripened, he cannot cast it off.
So those three paragraphs, the Buddha's teaching covered evil, to be strong and purposeful. And then this last paragraph, does anybody want to summarize that?
Well, the Buddha says, do good, don't do evil. These are the teaching of the Buddha. So is always do the opposite. Don't harm. Be gentle. Be kind. Be thoughtful. Don't ignore the suffering. I mean, somebody who is in trouble, help him. This is what I think about, and this is a chapter also in the Dhammapada about anger. So there is an interest in how in this little place here, all it look like we are in the Dhammapada. And just I'm no scholar on this, I just study the Dhammapada now.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
Okay.
It reminds me of that saying, as a man thinketh, so he becomes.
You're right.
Yeah, so, if he's doing evil, that's what he's going to surround himself with. If he's doing good, that's the energy that he'll be attracting. And he's responsible for how he acts.
Okay, the next paragraph is desire must be got rid of as the root of all sorrow. Does anybody want to read or summarize those teachings right there?
I can read. Above all, desire must be got rid of as the root of all sorrow. From desires comes grief. From desires come fear. He who is free from desires knows neither grief nor fear. It is hard for one who is held by the fetters of desire to free himself of them, says the Blessed One. The steadfast who care not for the happiness of desires cast them off and do soon depart. As the shoemaker, when he has well prepared his leather, can use it to make shoes, so when one has cast off desires, he has the highest happiness. Desires are never satiated. Satiated, thanks, Dana. Wisdom affords contentment. Not even in the pleasures of the gods does the disciple of the perfect Buddha find pleasures. Rejoices only in the destruction of desires. Continue.
Any comments?
No,
Well, I think
Go ahead, Pablo Maniti.
it reminds me the light on the path. Kill desire, kill all the desire, kill desire to live, kill all the desires. So we have to pay attention to this and put a paper on the wall. Monday, kill this desire. Tuesday, kill this desire. But how we can live without desire? We can.
No, I was just what I thought of was what we're going to talk about next week. Is that's what I always think, how to kill that out, but about Taoism and Wu Wei. I don't know what else to call it. You know, to me, to kill out desire, the only way is to like go with the flow.
Killing is a strange word. I think in some is it editions of Voice of the Silence, there might be a note that says kill can be translated as paralyzing or purifying.
Dana?
I was just thinking on by destroying your desires, you actually attain more wealth because you're not chained to them. You're not chained to trying to pursue them, and they're illusory. They're not real.
It's not the desire, it's how you respond to it. It has control over you. Because most of them are temporary. I think somewhere in the reading, I don't know if it was last week, he talked about when that, I thought he said that, Annie Besant said, when that situation starts to develop, then focus on the eternal. And that'll help separate you from reacting to the desire.
I remember Joy saying, let's say somebody gave you some chocolate. It doesn't mean you say, oh no, I'm killing out desire for chocolate. Well, it's there, enjoy it. But then when it's gone, you don't crave it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Attachment to that.
But chocolate is an exception. it's not included with desire. That's a requirement for life.
We'll forgive you, Doug. I know you. That's your weakness.
One of many, which I'm proud of.
That was Joy's weakness also. She loved chocolate. So that's why probably she talked about chocolate, that you eat it and then if she was trying to do what she was teaching. But
sometimes too in life we talk about proper balance. We always say 90-10. So 10% of the time it's okay for your desire so that you stay balanced. Because you want to take the middle road, not the two extremes.
Good point. So in the next paragraph, the teaching is pithily summed up. Avoid doing all wicked actions, practice most perfect virtue, thoroughly subdue your mind. This is the doctrine of the Buddha. And then the next paragraph after that talks about the desires or the asavas, which mean craving, desire, thirst. And that there's 7 classes to be abandoned respectively. Does anyone want to go through them, or do we have a handle on desire? We do have 20 more pages, just to let you know.
Can move on.
Thank you. I just need one person to agree with me. When all is done, he has destroyed that craving, thirst by thorough penetration of mind. He has rolled away every fetter, and he has made an end of pain. The next paragraph talks about the faults in others versus the self. Does anyone want to summarize that? Or, I mean.
Or read it.
Okay, we can go on. The next paragraph starts out, the Buddha found fond of forcing his questioners to answer their own questions. That reminded me of Krishnamurti. So he often questioned the questioner. The next few paragraphs seem to talk about the way of the Brahmana and the right way of being a Brahmana and the wrong way.
I think it's Brahmana, right?
Oh.
Where's the accent? It's,
over that first A?
First?
Yeah.
First syllable?
Yeah. So it's Brahmana. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think when there's that accent thing, you sound the A like more with an open mouth. And then when there's none, the A is sounded more like an
Got it.
not ah.
All right. I'm not doing well in my Spanish class either with the accents.
But also you can interpret that like 2 ways. So you say Brahmana.
Ah, okay. Okay, so does anybody want to talk in general about what the Buddha's saying here? Do you want to go paragraph by paragraph, pick out his teachings?
I find it amazing, you know, if you look at the 7 classes to be abandoned, and you know, and all the disciples who wanted to be part of his teaching, and it, you know, it's very, some of it's just very harsh. It's, you know, it's abandoning what you know and your comforts, and going and following his guide. And, you know, some of it was, I mean, he went out and begged, which is not really begging, but he went out and, you know, relied on others to give him food. And I know it all had meaning, but it's just amazing that there were so many that, or it seemed there were so many that wanted to follow this desired to follow, not desired, okay, whatever the word would be.
I think that's a regular practice, or it used to be, is each monk was giving what is called a begging bowl, and anybody can come in. And so they would walk through the neighborhoods and take whatever food was given to them. So that would surely crush out any desire that you have attached to what food you want to eat during the day.
But it almost seems contradictory. I mean, we saw that in Thailand when we went to visit there, and I guess it's the way you look at it. I mean, from the outside, it looks like they're suffering so that they can avoid they're suffering now so they can avoid suffering later on. So it almost seems like an oxymoron, but I guess what it really depends on is what their inner state is while they're going through what most people would perceive as suffering.
If they don't really need anything to be other than the way it is, then that's the end of suffering.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what they eat, or even if they do eat or not. You know, I mean, they might be hungry. Okay, hungry is a sensation. Hello, my hungry. There's my little hungry. Nice to see you, hungry. Whatever, tomorrow I'll have something to eat. You know, if it's just not a problem. So I think we make it a problem. But I'm not sure I mean, I think the end of suffering is the end of desire and needing things to be other than the way they are.
But they do put their bodies through a lot of uncomfortable situations, you know, enduring cold and heat, hunger and thirst, you know, insects.
Snake bites.
Yeah, snake bites, just going around, and you know, in those days and in that terrain, there were a lot of dangers. So it's just not. I guess it takes a lot of self-dedication, or
sacrifice and.
Yeah, I was going to use the wrong word, desire, to do it, but.
Yeah, but don't you think that especially the disciples of the Buddha, that there was the love that the Buddha puts out?
Transmission.
Sure, yes, and I'm sure that this wasn't the first time they were experiencing that. You know, there was an attraction because there'd been a lot of work done possibly together before. But, you know, to the normal person, you know, it seems like a difficult path. Of course, even looking at somebody in a monastery, I mean, most of us would you know, that's a difficult life for most people. It's, you know, for the few.
Oh, Susan, what word did you use? I didn't hear you.
I said transmission. When you're in the presence of somebody whose frequency is a little bit higher than yours, it lifts you up.
Yeah, makes you vibrate.
But I also, I don't know, Doug, I don't mean to be controversial. I'm not intending to be controversial, but to me, the monastic life sounds so appealing.
No,
I could do
I'm
that in a minute.
100% with you. You know, but making that transition from the non-monastic life till you get to the point where that's where you want to be. So it isn't causing unpleasantness. It's staying where you are that causes unpleasantness. Like sometimes when you move, you've outgrown where you're living. You can't grow anymore, and staying where you've been for the last 20 years or 10 years is unpleasant, and you have to make a change. So no, I agree with you. I could sit in
I don't think that what makes the difference between suffering and not suffering is how you see it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not thinking their lives were necessarily harder than some of our lives are now. They're just different parameters, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have very little food, then what you have you enjoy thoroughly. But I'm not saying that because we have, you know, aisles and aisles of food that we suffer. No, we don't. But
right.
Yeah, no, in one case, we're looking at it externally but I agree with you. Those people are living it internally, which is a whole different approach.
But I think we all have that option. We all have that choice to make about how we have our lives exactly the way they are.
Yeah, pain is optional. No, pain is inevitable.
Right.
Suffering is
Suffering
optional.
is optional. Yeah.
Definitely.
You see those people who have nothing and are so happy.
Yeah.
You know, and you see the people who have everything and they're miserable.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we go to page 123 and 124, or he starts talking about the Brahmana,
Yeah.
and how he compares the old sages with and I'm assuming the old sages that came before him, with the people, with some of the Brahmins. Is Brahmana and Brahman the same thing? No.
Sometimes Brahmana, they write it also as Brahmans or Brahmins.
Right.
As long as it is not talking about Brahman,
right,
then yeah, it's the same.
Right. So to me, then what they're talking about is a class of people. And in these next few pages, the Buddha talks about, you know, what makes a good Brahmana, what makes a bad one, that just because you're born into that caste, which this is what we're talking about, doesn't mean that automatically gives you special powers or, you know, special anything. And he's basically saying here that he was not deceived by outside appearances. Those who bear a sacred name should honor that name by the life they lead, and not bring scandal and discredit upon it by their lust, anger, and greed.
Oh, very good.
And then the old sages were self-restrained, penitent, having abandoned the objects of the five senses, they studied their own welfare. So kind of, yeah, what we see today. If we go on, is there any part? I'm on page 125. Speak up if you have something before that. Elaine, I'm sorry you don't have your book.
No, it's okay. No, I read it. So if you talk about it, I know what you'll be talking about.
So on page, I'm assuming it's your page 125, where they say the Buddha reaffirmed the ancient idea that the essence of the caste consisted in spiritual development. And if he declared that a man does not become a Brahmana by his plaited hair, by his family, or by birth, he only repeated what Manu had taught when the caste system was ordained.
Because it's the priestly caste.
Right. And I think we saw that in India, how some of it, or the one temple we went to, how the priestly caste had degenerated, not degenerated, but
degenerated.
Yeah.
They were supposed not to touch money, for example, part of
one
the
kept
rules.
following.
And one kept following us, asking us for money, and offering us to explain some little sculpture that was on the wall, so that we could pay him.
No, and I gave him money.
Yeah,
but it wasn't
was
enough.
Too little for
so
him.
I tried to take it back. I said, "All right, I'll take it back then." Boy, did he grab hold of that.
Those were all swamis, supposed to be,
Right. So yeah. It seems like a lot of more of that was on. Yeah, I just have notes going about this. Does anyone have any other comment about them Brahmanas?
Continue.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have my book either.
That's okay. Speak up then. I just don't want to take over and say, okay, here we go. But I can do that, no worries. So yeah, he talks here, as we go through, he talks about, in the words of the Manu himself, the Brahmana without the qualities of the Brahmana is like an elephant of wood and an antelope of leather, the mere outward appearance of the thing and not reality. So that these last few pages talk a lot of that. Man must have the inner life to be worthy of the name. And if I'm not, does anybody else remember? My notes say here, abolish Brahmana caste and the bhikkhus or bhikshus.
It's the same.
That's what I thought. Yeah, the
Sanskrit.
bhikkhus. I believe that that's what the Buddha wanted to do, was to destroy those classes. Did anybody else remember? Oh, to represent the Buddha as an enemy of Brahmanas and as seeking to destroy them as a caste, when all that he did was to hold up the ancient idea and to reproach those whose lives dishonored it. It is a perversion of facts.
But because he criticized the caste system because of its degeneration, then the Brahmanas started to look at the Buddha as an enemy, and actually India eventually wiped out Buddhism from India.
Right.
So yeah, it's similar to what happened with Krishnamurti. He would criticize things, and then people and some theosophies were, thought that he was against theosophy or against this religion or that.
Or Blavatsky, for that matter.
Yeah, but what he was criticizing is the misinterpretations, or
or didn't he criticize organizations?
Yeah.
And everybody took that as there should be no organizations, and that's not what he was saying.
Well, he formed organizations, the foundations.
Right. Any more? Touching the gods, the Buddha did not take the position often ascribed to him, a position impossible to one who knew all worlds. He says that he himself has visited the worlds of gods and that he knows the way to them and is able to guide men along the path. I'm trying to say why.
Yeah, so he wasn't talking from philosophy or
right, from what he was read or what he taught,
or what he thought about life.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, modern philosophy, our great philosophers, Kant, etc., they just sit down and try to figure out what life must be or what.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a different. This is why these are not really philosophies. They are an expression of an experience. It's more of a science in a sense.
We find frequent references to the gods endorsing the belief of Hindus. By earnestness did Indra rise to the lordship of the gods. The disciple will overcome the earth and the world of Yama, which is the wrathful god, and the world of gods. The gods even envy him whose senses, like horses, well broken in by the driver, have been subdued. Let us live happily then, though we call nothing our own. We shall be like the bright gods, feeding on happiness. Speak the truth, do not yield to anger. Give if thou art asked for little. By these 3 steps thou wilt go near the gods. So kind of just his description of how to get to where he is.
Yama is that Lord of Death in the Kathopanishad, but also in Buddhism is the demon of impermanence.
And I don't hear him talking about meditation. And I shouldn't say him. I don't hear that discussed.
I think I saw something.
Yeah, it's a meditation is part of the noble, the eightfold
Eightfold.
path.
Right, concentration, something like that.
Well, because it's if I always think if you're trying to go near the gods, a meditation was your vehicle.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's an interesting aspect, that original Buddhism was far more than just meditation. There is all this morality, there is the right view, which involved the study of all the sutras, etc. And meditation was one of the steps. And the way that that Buddhism is known in the West is pretty much like just a technique of meditation in a sense. So that's important to keep in mind. Many monks actually, they are upset about Buddhism becoming fashionable, because they say the whole philosophy is reduced to watching your breathing or something.
Yoga.
Wouldn't we say that Buddhism was about perfecting the self in order to help others?
there were some,
Nirmanakaya concept.
say it again, Elaine, I'm sorry.
Being a Nirmanakaya, you mean?
Or a bodhisattva?
Yeah, a bodhisattva.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Not for the self, but for the whole.
The bodhisattva vow.
Yeah, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, because in Theravada Buddhism, the aim is to attain nirvana. And there is very little talk about helping others or anything like that.
So somewhere in the book, there's it talks about like the northern church and the southern church. Is that the northern would be more like the Tibetan, I guess?
Yeah, northern is Mahayana and southern.
Mahayana, and then the Theravada would be the southern.
Yes.
Would
So
that
it
be
sounds-
accurate?
Yeah, so it sounds like the Southern Church focused on the adoration of the Buddha, and the Northern Church worshipped more of the gods.
Because Buddhism was pushed to Sri Lanka and Thailand, all that part, that's the southern church. And then it went up to North India, Nepal, Tibet, and from there to China and Japan, and that's the northern church. So that's all the Mahayana branch.
Right. And then from there, they talk about that there must have been some discrepancy, that the Buddha ignored heaven and hell, the states of heaven and hell. And so in here, Annie Besant tells us that we find him describing both at length. And then one of the teachings is on the dissolution of the body after death. He is reborn into some unhappy state of suffering or woe, while the well-doer, under similar conditions, is reborn into some happy state in heaven. The Northern Church scriptures have full accounts of the invisible worlds.
So it's suggesting that there was a concept also of like a Kamaloka.
I don't have a picture now.
Right.
Again, the Buddha was talking to Hindus who already had all these Kamalokas and Devalokas, etc. So for the most part, he didn't want to talk about that and repeat that. So probably he didn't teach a lot about it.
Right.
But certainly that was part of his knowledge.
Right. Yeah, he talks here. What does it say? Kamaloka, Rupaloka, Arupaloka, an ecstatic state of real. Beyond these, the Arupaloka of four heavens, an ecstatic state of real existence. Here dwell those disciples of Buddha who have not attained the imperishable nature. Beyond this is nirvana. So it sounds like describes that in length. I'm on page 130 right now. He talks about the secret teaching, or Annie Besant talks about the secret teachings. The scriptures of the Northern Church seem to be fuller than those of the Southern. The tradition of the Arhats, and Arhats is another name for the Mahatmas.
Well, sometimes it's used like that in theosophy, but Arhat, it's applied to Buddhism in particular.
Meaning?
An Arhat was a level of realization.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So these next few pages, she goes through what sound like the initiations in Theosophy.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
One thing though, I wondered, in Theosophy, especially Leadbeater talks about the Aseka initiation after the Arhat, and Buddhism doesn't mention that at all.
No, Buddhism mentions 4 levels of realization, like when you get rid of certain fetters.
Is that the stepper in the water?
Yeah, exactly.
The crosser of the water?
Yeah, and what Leadbeater says is that all of those levels corresponds to the 4 initiations. But it's not that in Buddhism they talk about initiations, they just talk about those stages, which, you know, from a theosophical point of view, we would say
There we can draw a parallel.
Yeah, and perhaps, you know, according to Leadbeater, those were levels of initiations, but they were not taught in that way. They were taught about, like, you know, just
Crossing
realizations,
yeah.
or crossing the. Yeah.
Elena, what word did you say? Could you spell that?
Asekha.
Okay. Okay. All right.
It's just that maybe the Buddha just didn't describe much beyond the Arhan stage. You know, because anyway, we don't even know what the Arhan stage really is like. We can just imagine.
Right. Yeah, I guess when you get to the Arhan stage, then you can get to the Aseka. Figure that comes next. Okay, so, you know what I wanted to discuss? We have a few minutes and we can end on this. On page about 131, a disciple may say of himself, hell is destroyed for me, and rebirth as an animal or a ghost or in any place of woe, I am converted. I am no longer liable to be reborn in a state of suffering and am assured of final salvation. So I wanted to touch on, because I know they're in the Theravada tradition, I don't know the Mahayana, they believe they could come back as an ant or
Yeah, you know, all Buddhism, they believe that.
Okay. So yeah, I wanted, when we were in conversation with someone about this, and all I could think was, I'm really glad I don't study Buddhism. Because I don't want
to be a cockroach.
Exactly. So that's what I was thinking.
So you can say, well, you Buddhists can come back as a cockroach. We Theosophists don't.
Yeah. So is there a misunderstanding? I don't want to say like the Buddhists don't understand their own teachings, but what is Theosophy?
Blavatsky made an argument that that's a misunderstanding, in the sense that and it comes from Hinduism, and that after death, your principles and skandhas, if they were very animalistic, they can be attracted to animals, and then they get more degraded, and then when you come back, you get, you know, worse skandhas, as if you had been incarnated in an animal, let's say. So she says that it was an esoteric teaching that is too subtle and difficult.
That's more of an analogy.
Yeah. Well, there was an incarnation in an animal, not of you as your soul. It was your skandhas that incarnated in the animal, and then you pick up those skandhas. Something like that, but it's too complex, so the popular belief was just animal reincarnation.
Maybe it's just meant to be a motivation.
Yeah, it is used like that in Buddhism. The idea, you don't know if you are going to be a human being next lifetime. So since
You better be good.
you better, do the right thing.
Oh, so you're, Susan, you're saying a motivation to have you use this life as the best way possible?
To be good.
Yeah, okay.
Do good. Like
Yeah.
they would teach also, be kind to animals that could have been your mother.
Right.
Right,
That too.
right,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, there are several positive things you can draw from that teaching, which is how
Right.
I mean, Christianity's, not that much different in that, if you don't toe the line, you go to hell for all time.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd rather be a cockroach.
Oh yeah, for one lifetime.
Yeah.
But there's a sutra that goes really out there because it says the chances of being reborn as a human being is like the chances of a sea turtle, you say?
turtle.
Yeah, that coming out of the ocean and just going through a wheel of a cart that was floating there, like saying the chances are very low to be incarnated as a human. There is one sutra that is very to the extreme.
And why?
Probably to stimulate, you have to reach nirvana now because you don't know when you will be human
Okay,
again.
so that's the motivation.
Yeah.
Is not necessarily just to be good, but to do everything you can to reach nirvana so you don't maybe come back as a cockroach.
And also because only human beings can reach nirvana in Buddhism.
Right.
So
Okay, now I
But we do all understand that's the wrong motivation, right?
I don't know.
it's like your parents, putting the fear of God in you. So
right.
Right. I had a guy once came into my practice whose mother had told him, and he still believed it. He didn't want me to cup him because he believed that that bruises were like hickeys, and hickeys gave you cancer because his mother had told him if you get a hickey, you got cancer.
That's a good one. I should have remembered that. I should have known that.
I mean, I couldn't convince him that it was really okay.
Wow.
Mihaela wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that, that the turtle comes out every 100 years and it happens to go through that hoop. That rare, it's, a human incarnation, and we should really, work to realize ourselves because it's so rare.
Okay. I get that. So yeah. So it's a treasure, or what do you say?
Yeah. Actually, they have this meditation on these 4 truths, and one of them is how precious the human birth is, and it's based on that idea.
And not only that, but they also talk not that we are humans, but those who meet the Dharma and then have the faculty to understand it, and then they have the Sangha, and then they study, and then they have their faculties, so there are all this like what do you call
coming together of all these rare things.
So you, first of all, to be a human is like amazing, and then to be able to really get it, so that's the point in the end.
And to cultivate respect for others and yourself, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, Shankara says something similar. He says to be born in a human body, to be born a Brahman or Brahmana because those are the ones that could study.
Right.
To be born a male, again, because normally male. And then if you have all of that and you don't practice spirituality, then you are a fool.
Makes sense.
One of the
Gaspar
things,
is getting ready to sleep. Oh, sorry, Pablo.
I think the turtle, they come to a place on the beach, lay down the eggs covered by the sun, and they go, never come back. You know, they don't have an attachment for the future little turtle.
Right, right.
Well,
Maybe
the little turtle's capable though.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not that they're being a bad mother.
No, that is maybe the way they do that. Like in the North Pole, there is a different life, and their culture is not the same our culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the mother, they don't go to the hospital. They give a birth in the igloo on the ice.
Right.
Different. Maybe the turtle have that tradition.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a very big tapestry of life,
Definitely. All the different colors.
different colors.
Okay. Any other last comments?
I will ask if we stay on another session with this chapter, or we finish today.
We are going to finish today, so we won't be able to finish the last 8 pages or so.
We come back.
If anybody wants to meet, I'll be happy to do for our listening members.
No,
Otherwise, next Tuesday, dun, 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 this way, Susan will be our guest speaker on Taoism. So,
okay.
Susan Johnson, you mean?
yes, Susan
Oh,
Johnson.
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So we finish today.
We finished today on Buddhism.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, and are there any other comments?
I think I'm very happy to do these studies, but also on this time in the history of the world, I feel we live a real nice monastic life with the books, with our thoughts, and send the good vibration to the whole world, because we are now more in touch with everybody than before. I mean, with our mind, with our heart. Thank you, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, I have just a quick, and you can check out, I'm just going to play a quick video on a gratitude mantra. I forgot the name. Danya Vadaya. Danya Vadaha. Something like that. Anyway, you'll hear her and see it. So, giving thanks to everybody, and I will not see it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, that was it.
Great.
Blessings.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Thank you very much. Very nice.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love you too.
Good night.
Good night.